I've got a really cool tip for you on how to do a chord progression, and that particular progression, if you've been listening to my music, is in so many pieces, and that's because it was originally used in songs in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and even into the 50s and 60s. And I'm going to show you how to do that progression because you asked here on today's tip. First of all, I want to introduce two new chords, probably new to those of you who are beginning or who are intermediate, and that's a diminished chord and an augmented chord. We'll talk more specifically about those as we build the progression. To start with, the progression is sort of built on one that's been around and used quite extensively in the 50s, and you're probably familiar with it, and it goes from in the key of C, C, A minor, F to G7. And it sounds like this. Now, you got to stick with me here because I know this sounds a lot of technical stuff, but just bear with me and rewatch this video a couple of times. You're going to really get a hold of this. Now, the way I remember how to play these chord progressions is instead of using the chord names, I put numbers at their position in the scale, commonly used by lots of different players. So in the key of C, the root chord is C, but it's also the first note in the scale, so it gets the number 1. And then we want to do the A minor, which happens to be the relative minor in this key, and it's the 6th note in the scale. C, D, E, F, G, A. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'd write that down as 6 with a little m. Then the next chord we're playing is the subdominant, which is F. So and it's number 4 in the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4. C, D, E, F. So F. And then we go to the last chord is the dominant 7th, which is G, 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's the number 5 with a little 7. And again, the progression sounds like this. And it wants to go back to 1. So 1, 6M, 4, 5, 7, 1. That's the progression that we're building. So this progression, as you've heard, goes like in all the 50s songs. Do, 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 do. And we're going to jazz this up a little bit and soften it at the same time. But instead of playing the 4, we're going to change that to the 2M. So in the key of C, the second note is D, so it's D minor. So we're going to go C, 1, A minor, which is 6M. Then we're going to do 2M, D minor, back to the 5, 7, and then resolve back to 1. So here it is all together. Okay, so we've built two different versions of this progression, and by now you're probably getting ready to send me a message to say, why are we doing all the numbers? Well, the numbers are for doing transposition later, and we will do that at the end of this. I do want to introduce right now this new chord, a diminished chord. I'm not spending any time explaining the fingering or what makes a diminished chord. I only want to give you the progression order. And if we want to do another lesson, we'll talk about what makes a chord diminished and so forth. Still going to work in the key of C, and the diminished chord I want to show you is this, which you can't see by hand really, but there's the chart. And this is what it sounds like. So we're going to replace the 6M, the relative minor in the key, with a diminished chord. And in this case, in the key of C again, there's their C chord. And then the next chord normally would be A minor, the relative minor. But we're going to do this instead. We're going to go C, and then we're going to add C sharp diminished 7. And then go back to what we said already about the 2M, which is D minor in this key, and then G7. So this is what it sounds like kind of run together. So now you've got the progression that I'd be using in all these songs that I told you I've been playing from the 20s, 30s, and 40s with that diminished chord. And This is why we're using the numbers, because if we look at the key of C, as I said before, the first is C, the sharp first diminished 7 is C sharp diminished, the 2M in this case is D minor, and the 5-7 is G7. But if I want to do this in a different key, so let's take a look. We'll look at the numbers for C through C, C, D, E, F, G, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? We want to change this key now to A. So here's how we do it. Instead of having to do all the letter transpositions, we just look for the scale. So in the scale of A, the first note is A, therefore the first chord is A. The second chord that we use, our diminished chord, is a sharped 1 diminished 7. And in this case, it would be A sharp diminished 7. Then we want to go to the 2M. So the second note in the scale of A is B, and here's B minor. And of course with 5-7, the relative of the dominant seventh in the key of A is E7. So we can transpose this very quickly. Very simple to do once you get onto this system. So there we go again. On the key of A to A sharp diminished 7 to B minor to E7. And then lastly, I want to introduce the last chord in this, what's called a turnaround progression. So we're going to put the augmented chord. Again, here's the symbol for E augmented, and here's what it sounds like. And it gets put at the end after we do the 5-7. So here's the progression in the key of A sharp diminished 7, B minor, then we go to E7, and then we just at the very end insert E augmented. And that gives you a complete turnaround. You can use that as an introduction to a song, or you can use it as well in between verses. Now, watch this video several times. You'll get onto this, and if you've got questions, let me know. And I will do another video if you want, showing all the fingering for all these things, and we'll see how it goes from there. Thanks for watching, and have a good day.